You idiot!
JetBlue passenger brags about being removed from flight for harassing Ivanka Trump. JetBlue passenger Dan Goldstein, along with his husband and their child, were removed from their flight after a confrontation with Ivanka Trump last Thursday. When Goldstein saw Ivanka and her family in the economy section of the New York to San Francisco flight on Thursday, he did a double take and said, "Oh my God, this is a nightmare." Goldstein, a 35-year-old attorney, continued his rant saying, "Why is she on our flight? She should be flying private." Meanwhile, Goldstein's husband, Matthew Lasner, a professor at New York's Hunter College, tweeted that his husband was going to harass Ivanka's husband, Jared Kushner, adding the hashtag banality of evil. The plane was still boarding when the incident occurred, so JetBlue's cabin crew was able to escort Goldstein, Lasner, and their child off the flight. A passenger on the flight, Marc Scheff, said he overheard Ivanka tell JetBlue staff, "I don't want to make this a thing." Scheff said that it seemed like Ivanka was fine with letting her harasser stay on the plane. But as JetBlue staff approached Goldstein to make sure he was calm, he said, "They ruin our country, now they try to ruin our flight." As Goldstein and his family were being escorted off the plane, Goldstein could be heard asking, "You're kicking me off for expressing my opinion?" The couple were put on the next flight. Lasner defended his husband by tweeting, "My husband expressed his displeasure in a calm tone. JetBlue staff overheard, and they kicked us off." Responding to the incident on Fox News, a Trump spokesman said, "To do that to a woman who was on there with her children? I don't care what your political background is or what your thoughts are. That's not the way we as Americans need to act." Here's 6 more stories about unruly airplane passengers.
Entitled Flyers Fight grounds flight over knee defender. A United Airlines flight from Newark to Denver was diverted after 2 passengers got in a fight over entitlement to recline seats. A man in the middle of the 12th row on United Flight 1462 used this device called the knee defender to prevent the woman in front of him from reclining. The man wanted to use his laptop, which would have been difficult if the woman reclined. But with knee defender, you just lower your tray table, then place the tiny plastic chocks on the arms. Now you can use your laptop in peace and even recline while you do so if you wish. The flight attendant asked the man to remove the device, but he refused. They couldn't decide who was more entitled, him to use his laptop or her to recline her seat. Especially since they both paid for Economy Plus seating, meaning they already had 4 more inches of legroom than the other sardines packed into coach. The flight was diverted to Chicago after the woman threw a cup of water in the man's face. Then they were both kicked off the flight and the plane continued to Denver without them. The FAA has not banned the knee defender because it doesn't pose a specific safety risk. But they might change their tune after one angry passenger makes the flyer 1 row back swallow them whole. What's your take? Who do you think was in the right?
Bad airline passenger behavior taken to a new low. This week, Boston Globe columnist Dante Ramos was witness to the latest episode of bad passenger behavior. Airplanes, for some odd reason, attract the worst kind of passengers, from the old lady who can't appropriately handle her luggage to the oblivious mum who is too tired to discipline herself, let alone her children. There's the fat man who has no respect for personal space or hygiene, and again, the undisciplined child. The drunk man, and the yogi. And now there's this woman, the ponytailed creature who Ramos and his friend Ryan encountered on a flight from Houston to Boston. Completely unconcerned with her fellow passengers' comfort, the woman decided to show off her locks. It broke an unspoken rule of economy class. Keep your coats, extremities, and expansive hairstyles under strict control, Ramos later wrote in a column for the Boston Globe. Following the incident, Ramos posted a photo of the woman's hair on Twitter. The photo has since gone viral. Luckily, Ramos and his friend escaped unscathed.
JetBlue removes unruly man from flight after forcing girl to pee in her seat. Footage obtained by ABC shows the incident that prompted a JetBlue pilot to divert a New York to Las Vegas flight to Detroit on Saturday morning. The crazed passenger lunged at a flight attendant, who then put a sleeper hold on the man, nighty-night, while another attendant restrained the man with zip ties. Using an abundance of caution, the captain ditched the unruly passenger in Detroit before continuing on to Sin City. JetBlue's message: behave yourself on our flights, or we'll drop you off in Detroit. That incident came just 5 days after JetBlue refused a mother's request to take her 3-year-old daughter to the bathroom. They'd been waiting to taxi for 30 minutes when Jennifer Devereaux's daughter started crying and needed to use the bathroom. "No, sit down," the flight attendant snapped at Devereaux, forcing the young girl to pee in her seat. When Devereaux stood up to clean the mess, she was again scolded by the flight attendant, who then alerted the pilot of the non-compliant passenger. Devereaux would have been booted from the plane had it not been for an understanding off-duty pilot sitting 2 seats in front of the mother. "I'm a mom too. I understand what you're going through, and I'm so sorry this happened to you," said the woman, who was able to convince the crew to let her stay. JetBlue offered an apology to Devereaux in the form of a $50 credit and $5,000 to any charity of her choice.
Flight to Paris diverts when man urinates on fellow passenger. It's never a good time to get peed on. Up there with the worst places for it to happen is among the clouds on board a plane. And that's precisely what took place on a 90-minute flight from Algiers to Paris, when a man on Air Mediterranean flight ML2673 started to get out of hand. Shirtless, he was reportedly upset that he would not be allowed to drink or smoke aboard the flight. Why he was surprised by this rule is anyone's guess. You're never permitted to smoke on planes anymore, and anyone thinking otherwise is probably drunk, which could explain why they cut him off. Well, the pissed off passenger didn't take too well to this news, and demonstrated his displeasure by peeing on a fellow passenger. As you might have guessed, this didn't go over too well, and apparently led to a big brawl that ended with the offender being held down by the flight crew. The pilot caught wind of the action and diverted the plane to Lyon, so the offender could be removed. After dumping the excess cargo, the flight got back en route and landed at Charles de Gaulle Airport roughly 3 hours behind schedule. You can expect the urinator probably won't be back on board an Air Mediterranean flight. Let's just hope the person he peed on packed a spare change of clothes.
Professor from China attempts self-upgrade on plane. A Chinese passenger who is also an assistant professor from UPenn attempted to upgrade himself on a United Airlines flight with embarrassing results. The flight was bound from Shanghai to New York City and was delayed due to the passengers' antics. Professor Lu Yong allegedly attempted to sneak into first class but was quickly ejected by flight attendants, and he retreated to the Economy Plus section. When flight attendants in that section realized that he was in the wrong seat, they attempted to request that he move to his assigned seat in economy. Lu then threw an epic temper tantrum, eventually ending up on the floor, and refused to move. 3 Shanghai airport police officers were called on board, but when Lu still refused to move, the officers resorted to physically dragging him off the flight. Lu can be heard screaming that the officers are ruining his new clothes as he's unceremoniously dragged off the plane. During the process, he kicked the officers, causing minor injuries. He's been charged with disrupting public service, which can result in a maximum of 3 years in jail. All that for an Economy Plus seat?
See a story that really should be animated? Suggest stories to TomoNews now.